Hello, and welcome back to the English Grammar course. I'm Marian, and I am delighted to be back on this journey with you today. In this lesson, we will be reviewing the lesson contents on the past simple, then advance to learning about the past continuous. So let's begin. The past simple is used in three main ways. To talk about an action that happened once in the past. I went to the cinema yesterday. To talk about an action in the past that was finished or completed at an unspecified time. I didn't like that card game we played last week. And finally, to talk about an action that happened regularly in the past. I went shopping every Sunday when I lived in London. We form the past tense of regular verbs by adding ed to the end of the infinitive form of each verb. This applies to regular verbs. For example, I called, you called, she called, he called, it called, we called, you called, they called. With irregular verbs, the infinitive form completely changes. There are many irregular verbs, and the only way to know how to conjugate them is by learning them by heart. The verb to be is also an irregular verb and is worth mentioning here. It conjugates in the past simple as follows. I was, you were, she was, he was, it was, we were, you were, they were. To form negative sentences in the past tense, we use the negative auxiliary verb did not, which can be contracted to didn't. We follow the construction subject plus did not or didn't plus the infinitive form of the verb. For example, my family did not want to go back to New York. Or, we didn't want any more advice from him. To form questions in the past simple tense, we use the auxiliary verb did plus subject plus the infinitive verb. Did you prefer the pasta or the chicken? Did they lose? All right, it's practice time. Can you choose the correct sentence? I sent my grandma a postcard from Rome. I sended my grandma a postcard from Rome. The first sentence is correct. In the past simple, the verb send, which is an irregular verb, becomes sent. I went to the beach this morning. I go to the beach this morning. The first sentence is correct. This morning is the past. Therefore, we need to conjugate the verb go to the past simple tense. I swam in the public swimming pool growing up. I swam in the public swimming pool growing up. The second sentence is correct. The past simple form of the verb to swim is swam. Swum with a U is the past participle, which we will learn in our future lessons of this chapter. Did your family go to Florida for the holidays? Did your family went to Florida for the holidays? The first question is correct. In questions, we use the infinitive verb with the auxiliary verb do. Did your family go? We do not use the past simple form of the verb. How many times did you read that book? How many times you did read that book? The first sentence is correct. We must place the auxiliary verb before the subject in a question. Oh no, I forgot my sunglasses. Oh no, I forgot my sunglasses. The second sentence is correct. The past simple form of the verb forget is forgot. Did she like her surprise? Did she liked her surprise? The first sentence is correct. In questions in the past simple, we use the auxiliary did with the infinitive verb. Therefore, like, and not its past simple form, liked. I drove to work today. I drive to work today. The first sentence is correct. The past simple form of the verb drive is drove. I feel sick. I eaten too much sugar yesterday. I feel sick. I ate too much sugar yesterday. The second sentence is correct. The past simple form of the verb eat is ate. Eaten is what we call the past participle, which we will learn later in this chapter. Well done! We've finished this practice. Now time to move on to the past continuous. There are many common uses for this verb tense. We use the past continuous to talk about an action that was happening in the past until another action started. For example, they were eating outside when it started to rain. I was doing my homework when my mom called me downstairs for dinner. We also use the past continuous tense for an action that happened before or after a specific time. At 9 a.m., I was running in the park. This sentence indicates that I started running before 9 a.m. and was still running at 9 a.m. and is likely still running after 9 a.m. It's an ongoing action. Let's compare these two sentences. I was doing my homework at 8 p.m. I did my homework at 8 p.m. The first sentence is in the past continuous, was doing, and indicates that I started doing my homework before 8 p.m. and was still doing homework at 8. The second sentence in the past simple indicates that I started my homework at 8 p.m., not before. We also use the past continuous to show that an action lasted for a long time in the past. For example, my stomach was hurting yesterday. Everyone was shouting at dinner. We often use the past continuous at the beginning of a story. For example, last Saturday, I was waiting in line at the bank when the man in front of me just started shouting for no reason. We also use the past continuous to indicate a change of mind. For example, I was going to eat pasta for dinner, but my stomach wasn't well, so I had soup instead. Just like with the past simple tense, we can use the past continuous with the words wish or if only to express things that we want now in the present. She wishes we were traveling in first class. If only I wasn't running late to work. Equally, just like with the present continuous, we do not use the past continuous with stative verbs, which are verbs of thinking and feeling, of senses, or of opinion. We never use these verbs with continuous tenses, whether that may be the past, the present, or the future. For example, we do not say, "When I arrived at the restaurant, I was needing to use the bathroom." Using the past continuous with the verb need is incorrect. Instead, we must say, "When I arrived at the restaurant, I needed to use the bathroom." To form the past continuous, we use the past tense of the verb to be, which we use as an auxiliary verb, and we add it with the present participle, which means verbs ending in ing. For example, I was calling her phone when she showed up. A quick reminder on how to conjugate the verb to be. I was, you were, he was, she was, it was, we were, you were, they were. We were playing a game when the lights went out. Practice time. Can you fill in the gaps in the past continuous? I was waiting for the bus when the car crashed. Jenny and Laura were dancing all night at the party. They were reading all summer in order to finish that book. Jim fell off the ladder while he was painting the ceiling. Great work! Now let's move on to negative sentences. To form negative sentences, we can use the structure subject plus was or were plus not plus the present participle. For example, we were not sleeping at 10 p.m. We can also contract the auxiliary verb be with the word not. Was not becomes wasn't, and were not becomes weren't. For example, we weren't sleeping at 10 p.m. I wasn't eating yet. Just a reminder that in spoken and informal English, native speakers almost always use contractions, and it's important for you to practice them too. Only in formal or academic writing should you not use contractions. Now, to ask questions with the past continuous, we place the auxiliary verb to be before the subject and follow the construction was or were plus subject plus present participle. The affirmative sentence, she was visiting Paris this time last year, becomes as a question, was she visiting Paris this time last year? Another example, I was running late. Were you running late? Remember to conjugate the verb to be according to its subject. Great work! It's time for practice. Can you choose the correct sentence or question? You were laughing at the clown? Were you laughing at the clown? The second sentence is correct. We must place the auxiliary verb before the subject in a question. John and Tom weren't watching the dog when it fell in the swimming pool. John and Tom wasn't watching the dog when it fell in the swimming pool. The first sentence is correct. John and Tom are two subjects. Therefore, their pronoun is they. John and Tom weren't watching. Were you eating dinner when I called? Were you eating dinner when I called? The first sentence is correct. Were you eating? Were, W-E-R-E, is the past form of the verb to be. The word where, W-H-E-R-E, is an adverb of place, not an auxiliary verb. I weren't driving home from work yet at 9 p.m. I wasn't driving home from work yet at 9 p.m. The second sentence is correct. With the subject pronoun I, the auxiliary verb to be becomes was in the past tense. At 8 p.m., we still weren't getting ready. At 8 p.m., we still were not getting ready. The second sentence is correct. We are not using a contraction, but that's okay. Better to use the verb without a contraction than with an incorrect contraction. In the first sentence, Weren't should be spelled W-E-R-E-N''T. Lola is leaving the party when I arrived. Lola was leaving the party when I arrived. The second sentence is correct. The auxiliary verb be must be in the past tense in order to form the past continuous. Lola is leaving is the present continuous and cannot be used with the verb I arrived. The two tenses clash. I was making banana bread last night when the oven suddenly caught fire. I was making banana bread last night when the oven suddenly caught fire. The first sentence is correct. When using the auxiliary verb be in the past tense, we do not contract it with the subject. Great job! Now time to move on to our task-based activity. This is an extract from the book Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, a very famous and popular book about a woman traveling around Italy and Asia. In this text, we have some examples of the past continuous. We will read the text together, then you will have 3 minutes to find the uses of the past continuous. Are you ready? Let's go. My original plan had been to stay here for just 6 weeks, have a bit of a transcendental experience, then continue traveling all over India. Looking for God. And I was even planning on meeting the Dalai Lama in March, up in Dharamsala. I was hoping he could teach me about God, but to stay put, to immobilize myself in a small ashram in a tiny little village in the middle of nowhere, no, this was not my plan. On the other hand, the Zen masters always say that you cannot see your reflection in running water, only in still water. So something was telling me it would be spiritually negligent to run off now, when so much was happening right here in this small cloistered place where every minute of the day is organized to facilitate self-exploration and devotional practice. All right, time to find the past continuous. 3 minutes, let's go. Time's up. Let's take a look. In this text, there are 4 uses of the past continuous. The first one is, I was even planning. Notice how there is an adverb used between the auxiliary verb and the main verb. The 3 other instances are was hoping, was telling, and was happening. Well done! We have finished with today's lesson and only have review to go. So we use the past continuous for an action that was happening in the past until another action started. I was watching TV when you called. We use the past continuous for an action that happened before or after a specific time. I was sleeping at 11 p.m. We use the past continuous for an action that lasted for a long time in the past. I was sneezing all day because of my allergies. We use the past continuous at the beginning of a story sometimes. I was driving when suddenly a cat ran into the middle of the road. We can use this tense to express a change of mind. I was going to go for a run when I decided to walk instead. And finally, we can use the past continuous to express things that we want now in the present. I wish I wasn't coughing so badly. To form affirmative sentences in the past continuous, we use the construction subject plus auxiliary verb to be plus the present participle. I was talking to her when my sister interrupted me. They were playing football last night. To form negative sentences, we follow the structure subject plus wasn't or weren't plus the present participle. She wasn't working last weekend. Remember, wasn't is the contracted form of was not, and weren't is the contracted form of were not. Finally, to form questions in the past continuous, we follow the construction was or were plus subject plus the present participle. Were you shopping when I called? Great work! Yet another lesson of the English grammar course finished. Well done for reaching this stage, and I look forward to our next lesson on the simple future. See you soon!